Okay, so Tara, who is she? So this is what Buddha's saying, that we can end up becoming a Buddha. This is what she's a Buddha. Okay, so what's a Buddha? Well, let's look. Buddha, it's really simple in a way. Buddha, is the end result of this long course that's called the Lamrim. The Tibetans very nicely put this, all the Buddha's teachings, all the Buddha's philosophy, all the Buddha's psychology, all the nuts and bolts of the worldview called Buddhism. It's all presented in a really orderly way. Junior school, high school, university, postgraduate, and we end up graduating as a Buddha. And so when we hear this word, it's almost so deceptively simple, it's a joke. We hear the word Buddha and we hear the etymology of it, or the equivalent in Tibetan, Sangye, and this tells us what we end up doing, but it implies the method. So Buddha, Sang implies, tells us, Buddha's done this job, that we can rid our mind of all ego, all fears, all sense of separateness, all panic, all drama, all delusions, all anxiety, anger, low self-esteem, the stuff that we are intimately familiar with, that we are so familiar with in our culture and our neuroscience and our psychology, that we're so utterly familiar with it, we take it as an absolute given, and we give it equal status along with the other stuff, assuming a normal person has it. So it sounds extraordinary to hear that Buddha says, no, sorry, folks, it's adventitious, you can get rid of it. The second syllable, da, tells us the other thing we can do, which is develop to perfection everything else in our mind. Intelligence, love, compassion, kindness, you name it. All the stuff that we are also intimately familiar with. So this is extraordinarily simple statement. We can get rid of all the rubbish. And why should we? Because it causes suffering and causes us to harm others. And we can develop to perfection all the other stuff. And why should we? Because that's the cause of happiness. But finally, this is what we really are, Buddha says. We all possess this potential. Buddha, Sangye. So the really crucial point is hearing that tells us the methodology. It means we obviously have to identify, we have to distinguish between all the rubbish, fears, dramas, anxiety, and nonsense, and between those and the other stuff. That's the job of being a Buddhist. That's the heart job of being a Buddhist. Being your own therapist, as Lama Yeshe puts it, So all of the Buddhist path from A to Z comes down to this job. Everything we do supports us in this job. And all the different approaches. So you've got the Lamrim, as we know, is this very structured, orderly presentation of all the teachings plucked out by Atisha in his little text that he wrote in the 11th century when he came to Tibet from India, this great scholar yogi. And he took all the essential points from all this vast body of knowledge, this vast worldview, basically, and presented it all in a nice, orderly, experiential way. Experiential and orderly according to the capacity of the person practicing. And that's what we call study. You start at junior school, you go to the middle stuff, you go to the advanced stuff, and then you graduate. Well, that's exactly the package here. And it's really marvelous, So Tara, she's in postgraduate. So we should get all excited. We're going to rush to postgraduate here, okay? Hang on a minute. Okay, so, so we can become a Buddha. That means a person whose mind is free of all the rubbish and full of all the goodness, which sounds simple enough. But if we actually started to articulate what that person would be like, it would for us sound, if we compare it with our neuroscience and our psychology, it would sound like insane science fiction, even more outrageous than Christianity, even more insane, more unbelievable, because the Buddha says every one of us can become one of these. So when our mind is fully developed, and is a Buddha's mind, what would be our essential qualities? Well, mind, first of all, is not physical. This is fundamental. For the whole of Buddhism to even begin to understand it intellectually, if Buddha can be proved to be wrong in his observation and his assertion that consciousness is not physical, then the whole of Buddhism will collapse into a complete heap of utter absurdity. So we have to take this first as our absolutely fundamental starting point, our hypothesis that our consciousness, our mind is not physical, is not a function of the brain, has a very nice relationship with the brain. The brain, if you like, is a physical indicator of what's going on in our mind, at least at a gross level. It is not the brain, it is not physical. It is not the handiwork of a creator. It didn't begin in our mother's womb. We are not the handiwork of our parents. Our mind isn't. Our mind is not physical. It is beginningless, it is endless, and it has this insanely marvelous potential to be utterly free of rubbish and utterly full of goodness. In fact, there are 3 essential qualities. I gave a talk to the Catholic University in Melbourne a couple of years ago in Australia, 5 years ago maybe. And I had a little 20-minute slot at this conference. And the morning I got there, I didn't have a clue what I was going to talk about. So I looked up the dictionary. I thought, okay, what's God? I looked up the Merriam-Webster dictionary for the definition of God. And it said 3 essential qualities: infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite power. I thought, well, that's easy. That's a Buddha. So it's very fascinating to me that over the centuries, isn't it, that all these amazing human beings have come up with many similar findings, very radically different findings, but something very similar. So a Buddha is got the same 3 qualities: infinite wisdom, and that specifically means here seeing exactly how things exist without mistake, but in particular seeing exactly all the minds of all sentient beings, all their past and all their future and all their karma, which gives them the wisdom to know exactly what's going on, which then is helped by this infinite compassion, this empathy, no longer a separate sense of self. So this infinite compassion based upon that infinite wisdom, then those two together is the ability to benefit others, is the wishing to benefit others. But the third one is the ability to do it, which is the infinite power. Well, that's a Buddha. And Buddha says everyone can become one. So when you achieve that, your consciousness, which is not physical, how can it be confined by space or time or matter? It cannot be. So therefore it pervades the universe. It is wherever there is existence. You see exactly as things are. You see the minds of all others. You have infinite empathy with all of them, and the effortless power, including the ability to manifest in countless bodies throughout countless universes for countless eons for the sake of countless sentient beings. Now that's the science fiction part, but that's what Buddha says is true. That's his finding, and he became one of those. And we all can become one of those. And that's the end result of this junior school, high school, university, postgraduate work of being a Buddhist. So then who is Tara in all of this? Okay, there's really one Buddha. It's this unmanifest, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-compassionate, all-pervasive consciousness, not physical. And as Lama Zopa said, Lama Yeshe said, it's just like the concept of God, knowing everything, being everywhere, blah, blah. But so that's the result everyone can achieve. And Buddha would say, many beings have accomplished that, and you all achieve that state. Well, you can argue there's only one of those. You don't bump into each other in the sky. There is infinite wisdom, infinite power, and unmanifest infinite compassion. But the beings who become that, then out of their enormous compassion, because what drove them to become a Buddha in the first place is compassion, seeing the unbearable suffering of beings, the wish to help. So that's your absolute nature. That's your nature when you become the Buddha. But that's not much use to peanuts like you and me. We need help. So they manifest in bodies. So there's billions of those, billions of Buddha bodies all bopping around the universe, manifesting in 2 main different kinds of forms. One is a type of form that you and I can see. So Shakyamuni Buddha, Mr. Buddha of 2,500 years ago, looking like a human being, looking like you and me, sounding like you and me. That's the form that we can see. There's another form that Buddha manifests in, which is visible in the meditations of the great Arya Bodhisattvas who've realized emptiness, of these high beings, who've got their mind at a subtle level, who really profoundly advanced. They can cognize Buddha at this subtler level, these subtle light bodies. So that's expressed absolutely in all the tantric teachings. You've got the sutra teachings of the Buddha, and you've got the tantric teachings of the Buddha, and that's expressed in the postgraduate level, okay? So in the sutra teaching, there's Buddha, Mr. Buddha, the monk, and that expresses all those, and this is the crucial thing to understand now, the different levels of practices and what these different forms of the Buddha represent. So the form of the Buddha, looking at that form, he is the actual living manifestation. He's the visual, he's the physical manifestation of the qualities of perfecting your body, speech, and mind at that level of at the sutra level of the teachings. You know, in particular, the first level, which is perfect controlled behavior, perfect speech, and totally subdued mind. That's a Buddha. So he's showing us in that aspect what we can become. Now, at the higher, more advanced level, in the Vajrayana, the more sophisticated level of Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist psychology, the Buddha manifests in these more subtle light bodies, looking really gorgeous. There's millions of these. So speaking fairly simply, you could argue the tantric aspect of the Buddha is this gorgeous bodhisattva style, looking like kind of coming from traditionally, historically coming from the Indian sort of royal style. And this is where Tara fits in, where Chenrezig, all these ones. They're not in the form of a monk, it's very clear. They're completely different manifestation. They're a whole different level of psychology. This first stage of practice, junior school, control your body and speech. High school, control your mind. Shakyamuni Buddha is like the manifestation of that, if you like. That level of practice, subdued body, speech, and mind, which the first levels of practice show us how. And then the Bodhisattva path, this aspect of the Buddha is a different aspect. And this is where we're going to get get into the differences psychologically, the differences philosophically in these different levels of practice, just keeping it simple. You know, we'll try to, well, I can't do more than simple anyway. So then Tara is, okay, so at this level, you've got Shakyamuni representing this first level of practice, subdue your body, speech, and mind. Control the enemies, control the delusions, completely subdue, in particular, attachment. Subdue attachment and its servants, which is body, speech. So now at the more advanced level in the Bodhisattva path, more skillful practitioners, these great yogis, they can utilize, this is the skillful psychological approach of the tantric approach. They're much more skillful. They're able to utilize what initially is poison, which is the source of all our suffering, attachment, which gives rise to anger, and all the other 83,997 delusions that Buddha has articulated in his marvelous map of the mind. And he summarizes them down to 3: ego, grasping, attachment, and aversion. But the crucial one to understand here is the one called attachment, which we need to talk about. In order to understand Tara, in order to even begin to comprehend the psychology of Tantra, we absolutely have to understand attachment, which is in high school. And we have to understand how to subdue our body and speech, which is the servants of attachment, in junior school. And that's the whole, that's there's two, this analogy I use a lot, the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. The wisdom wing is, Shakyamuni represents that one, if you like. Subdued body, speech, and mind, where he's completely harnessed the energy of the mind, in particular, this energy of attachment, which is effectively the main source of all our pain and suffering in daily life and what makes us go berserk. So in the Bodhisattva path, even as at the sutra level of the Bodhisattva teachings, the Bodhisattvas are already have harnessed their energy so marvelously. At the first level, you can't even, you leave the chocolate cake there. At the Bodhisattva level, the Bodhisattvas could even eat the chocolate cake without going berserk. The Tantric Bodhisattvas, wow, dudes, they'll happily choose to eat the chocolate cake because they completely harness the energy of their mind, and there's something marvelous and skillful in that level, whether you're able to utilize even the poison. The most advanced practitioners can do that, roughly speaking. So these Buddhas at this level of Tantra, the Buddhas in Shakyamuni is to show us how to subdue our body, speech, and mind, harness the energy, be in control of it, be radiant, be blissful. The tantric level is how to is to energize, is to lift us up, to identify with our good qualities. In the first level is subduing the rubbish qualities. Here, Tantra is because we're so together, the theory goes, that we can now enhance our good qualities, and we should activate joy, activate the positive qualities. And even so, that's the energy of all these Buddhas. So the energy of Buddha in the Sutra one is Shakyamuni, showing us how to behave, body, speech, and mind. The energy of the Buddha at the tantric level in the Mahayana, that's Vajradhara. I remember when I first went to Courtin monastery and first became a Buddhist, and I used to type all the teachings and things in the prayers, and I kept coming up with this person called Vajradhara, and I really liked him. And then I kept coming up with another person called Dorji Chung, and I really liked him too. And then I discovered he was the same Buddha. I was so excited. So I said to Lama Yesh, "Oh, Lama, who's Dorji Chung?" And Lama said, "He's the biggest Buddha, dear." No fancy answer, you know. It was and I was so proud, of course, but I like the biggest Buddha, you know. So Dorji Chung is like the tantric aspect of Shakyamuni, and Shakyamuni is the kind of the sutra aspect of, they're both the different aspects of Buddha mind, showing us certain aspects of ourselves to cultivate. That's the way to put it. So under him, roughly speaking, under Vajradhara, you've got, he's blue, looking gorgeous, holding a Dorji and a bell. And under him are 5 Buddha families, roughly speaking. This is very roughly speaking. And all of these also represent certain qualities. Shakyamuni represents subdued body, speech, and mind, indicating that level of practice. Then you've got under Vajradhara these 5 Buddha families. You've got Amitabha. He's the purified aspect of attachment. Akshobhya, the purified aspect of anger. Vairochana, the purified aspect of ignorance, and so on and so forth. And then under those 5, you have all these millions of Buddhas. Each of them, this is psychology basically. They're all, it's like visual psychology. Every single one of the Buddhas, and there are thousands, all under these categories, all under these families, they're all either manifestations of qualities we want to accomplish, or they're manifestation of qualities we want to, delusions we want to purify. So it's because it's a much more sophisticated level of psychology. So Vajrayogini, for example, this gorgeous, naked, red lady. She represents purified attachment. She's in the Amitabha family. Tara is a more peaceful, is also a tantric aspect, but more kind of popular one and less advanced. Well, they're all advanced, but there's different levels of tantric practices. So some of them you can do without having received an empowerment, and Tara's one of those. We're discussing her. So where does she fit? Okay, well, she's in that Amitabha family too, but there's another way of presenting who she is. a Buddha has three essential qualities, like I said before: compassion, wisdom, and power. Well, Chenrezig, popular in Tibet, Avalokitesvara, is a peaceful aspect as well. He's one of the representations of compassion, loving kindness and compassion. Wisdom, Manjushri, Manju, gentle voice. Shri is like Lord. He's holding a sword in his right hand with a tip of fire. He cuts through ignorance, you know. The third one, power or action, is one representation is Tara. So from the purposes here, this is what she represents. She's the representation of it. Not only, so you need wisdom to know how to benefit sentient beings, you need compassion to want to benefit sentient beings, but you need the power to do so. And that's the third quality, and she represents that. So she's action, cut through the obstacles, success, confidence, power, courage. Her name actually means liberator, and she's often known Tara or Dolma in Tibetan. She's known as the liberator from all the fears of samsara, which means all the delusions and all the worries and all the dramas. She's courageous. She's action energy. And she's not sitting, like Chenrezig is looking very peaceful. Buddha sits in a very peaceful aspect, you know, when he's cross-legged in meditation. Tara's got one leg in meditation and one leg resting out on a little multicolored lotus in this action pose, showing us that she's ready to hop up to help others. She's an action lady, you know. And even sometimes you see in some of the pictures, her eyes aren't very peaceful. Sometimes her eyes are slightly wide open. You wouldn't cross Tara. She's like no nonsense, you know. But she's infinitely, like all the Buddhas, infinite compassion, infinite wisdom, but giving us courage. And we need this badly, you know. We can see. We might have wisdom coming out our ears. We might have a really big heart. But if we haven't got courage and confidence and power and success energy, we can't lift a finger, you know. So it's a necessary quality. And she represents that. There's different other levels of Tara too, at different levels of Tantra. There are levels of different kinds of Tara, you know, sometimes wrathful ones. There's many kinds. But the essence of Tara is, in this context here, is this essential quality of an enlightened being. And we can see in our own lives, we need this badly. We need compassion. We need the wisdom to know how to help others. And we have to have the ability to do it. So, and this, for me, I think we need this quality badly, all of us in our lives. Sometimes we're overwhelmed, we're hopeless, we're depressed, we think we're useless, we can't do anything, we can't succeed. It's not true. We can, and she represents this one. So to energize that aspect of ourselves is very important. To use her mantra is powerful, you know, and to visualize her. So that was all a bit quick, but did it make sense? Any questions before we go on about Buddha, these qualities, Sutra, Tantra, just roughly? Any questions about that so far? And if I confused you, I'm sorry. Anything, or I'll just carry on? I'll carry on then. Okay. No questions in the text yet? Not yet. Thank you. Good. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So, okay. Summary. Buddha is a word referring to enlightened consciousness. Buddha has found this person in India 2,500 years ago. He has found from his own experience, he has done the job of becoming one. So he presents, he says, this is what I become. And he's found that this is the nature of all minds. This is a fundamental point. This is the natural potential of every single mind. They say, as we know, they say we all possess Buddha nature, which is a kind of weird sort of phrase. Sometimes we think there's a little Buddha in there that we've got to kind of dig out, you know. It's good to think that sometimes because it gives us courage. But really, it's not like that. We possess the natural potential to rid the mind of all rubbish and to grow the goodness to perfection. That's the meaning. And that's a pretty powerful concept. And this does not fit in our psychological models. It does not fit in neuroscience. This is a bizarre idea. That's why it's so necessary if we want to begin to understand even intellectually what Buddha is saying, not just believe it as a bunch of religious rubbish. But to try to comprehend even intellectually how it's possible, we have to posit this possibility that this consciousness of ours, this capacity for cognition is not physical, is not physical. We start with that. And that's why it's marvelous also to read in the teachings. You know, Lama Yeshe in his book, Mahamudra, for example, you know, just waxes lyrical about this marvelous potential that our mind has. So it's so uplifting. And of course, it's really expressed in Tantra. I mean, Lama Yeshe from the very beginning of meeting all the hippies, right? Back in the mid-60s, early 70s. I mean, I met him in the mid-70s. He spent most of his time trying to lift us up from this groveling self-pity on the ground, full of depression, and as he would call it, self-pity me, you know. He really just constantly talked without saying the words from the psychological approach of Tantra, which is to activate the good qualities, to identify with your good qualities, to identify with that with yourself. Whereas Lama Zopa, every time he came and talked, you think you're going to go to hell for eternity, because the way he somehow talked just made you feel like, oh my God, I'm so full of delusion. So it was a nice balance, you know. Lama would come along and you'd sigh with relief. Thank God, that sounds possible. You'd lift yourself up. He spent most of his time, and if you read his teachings, that's what he mostly did. Even when he wasn't consciously, when he wasn't even overtly describing Tantra, he was always trying to encourage us to identify with our good qualities. And this is what a marvelous function of these kinds of practices. And of course, as I said, Tantra is the most advanced. But there are many of these practices, including Tantra, including Tara, including Chenrezig, that are still Tantra, the highest level of practice, but we can do them without having received an empowerment. It can be we can do very simple versions of them. We'll do a meditation tonight before we finish, just a really simple version of it. They're so psychologically empowering for us. So the essence of the approach in the sutra path, especially in the lower scope and the middle scope, junior school and high school, is so different from this approach in the Mahayana, in particular in the Vajrayana. Just to describe it, because it's very powerful to understand the difference, you know. So all across the board, Buddha's talking about the mind, and everything from junior school to high school, university, postgraduate, is all for the same purpose, to help us become a Buddha. But there's different approaches at different stages of our capacity, you know. So the Buddha's deal is, given that we're all driven, we're all in samsara, quote unquote. It's not some place where you're allowed to have sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that you have to give up to go some boring place called nirvana. Not like that. These are words, so samsara and nirvana are actually referring to where we are at in our minds, you know. So we are in samsara now, meaning we're caught up in delusions. And that's what causes us suffering. What's that causes us to harm others? That's what causes us to create karma. That's what causes us to have rebirths. And that's the cause of the whole drama, you know. So the Buddha's found we can cut all that, get rid of it all, cut the root of it, stop rebirth, stop suffering, become a Buddha. This is what he's saying we can do, you know. So the stages is incremental. Practices, like all practices, like any body of knowledge that you're learning. You start at the simple stuff, you go to the intermediate stuff, and then you go to the advanced stuff. It's pretty logical, you know. So what's the difference in these approaches? The thing to remember really is Buddha is a psychologist. And I'm not being sarcastic or silly, you know. He didn't use that word. He didn't speak Greek, did he? You know, he said the word mind. But that's his expertise. Buddha's expertise is the mind. Well, I endlessly quote this these days. It was a few years ago I heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama say, well, these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self. We smarty pants white people, if we're white Christian Jewish people, probably thought it was Freud. I mean, we're so arrogant, you know. 3,000 years ago. And it's only really now, with more and more and more the Dalai Lama and all these amazing Tibetan Buddhist scholars from Tibet, but also our culture, translating and publishing this incredible literature, showing this astonishing system of thinking and practice and so, that's been existing for 3,000 years before that in India. And they're the ones, these amazing Indians before the Buddha, they're the ones who created this technique called single point of concentration. These geniuses, I mean, it's the most unbelievable technique, likes of which do not exist, even remotely, in modern psychology or neuroscience. It's a fact, you know. Then Buddha came along, he went as far as he could go in that system, but he said still there's some delusions left in the mind, there's something that hasn't been finished, so diverge in his own direction, in particular in relation to his own direct experiential findings about the nature of self. He didn't chuck out what he learned, he just moved forward and reinterpreted, you know. So all the view of karma has been around for centuries before that. And Tantra, indeed, has come from these amazing, great, high sophisticated yogis before Buddha. So this is all continued on, you know, all established and clarified and explained in the Buddhist model, and especially then moved on to Tibet in about the 8th century, and now we're receiving the benefit of it. Here we are, 1,500 years later or something, 1,200, whatever. So, okay, the essence of junior school and high school, the first and second scopes, the lower and middle scopes of the Lam Rim, as we understand, that's the Hinayana path. As we know, the Buddhism you study in Burma, Thailand, essentially is the same here. It's junior school and high school. And that body of knowledge, which is taught in those countries, is what we broadly know as the Theravadan teachings. And Theravadan, I think, is one of the 18 remaining sub-schools of a particular, one of the Buddhist tenets, you know, that used to exist in India. So if you graduate at high school, if you graduate there, you will achieve your own liberation from suffering, your own nirvana, your own cessation of suffering and its causes. And if you read some of the qualities of a person who's like that, that would blow our minds. How astonishing it would be, you know, rid of all the rubbish, rid of all the delusions, and only blissful, only radiant, only kind, only loving. What else, you know? But you can go further, and this is also the Mahayana component. And then you can go on to university, and you can then do the bodhisattva component. So the first stages, the essence of the first stages, it's called the practices of the morality or the ethics of restraint, refraining from harming sentient beings. So as a result of this is the main emphasis here. So the main emphasis in the very first level, junior school, not even the mind yet, is control your body and speech, have good behavior. First level, entry level, junior school, grade 1, most urgent starting practice. This second, as Lama Zopa says, is back off and stop harming sentient beings. Now you should ask Buddha why. It's a really important question. A crucial point to understand. This helps us then understand the whole way we relate to the Buddha. I always quote this too, my Jesuit priest friend, when I asked him, Jesus also says don't kill. But you ask him, why not Jesus? He says, why? Is because God said. That's what defines a sin in Christianity. That's what defines a sin in Islam. That's what defines a sin in any philosophical body of knowledge that we label as religion that posits a creator. And it's a really powerful point. And it's appropriate if that's what you feel. But Buddha is not a creator. He doesn't assert a creator. We don't need creating. He says we do a fine job making our own mess, and we can do a fine job making our own goodness as well. We are the boss, which is a very different view altogether, you know. So why does Buddha tell us not to kill? Not because he says so. That's ridiculous. He says, guess what, folks? It's two things. One, he defines a negative action at this heaviest level as one that harms another. And as far as he's concerned, it's a natural law. You do some research among your friends, you're going to find 100% no one likes to get killed, lied to, or stolen from. So it's a natural law. My Christian friends, Catholic friends said, yeah, there's some aspect of natural law in the Christian view of why God said not to kill, that people don't like getting killed. But the real thing that determines it as a negative action is because God said. This is huge. That means God has the power. He's the boss. He ran the show. He made the world. He made me. He made the law. So of course he's the boss. And therefore he punishes and rewards at whatever level you want to understand that. Now, that's our view of morality. And that's what we bring into Buddhism. We hear the Buddha says, don't kill. If you do, you'll go to hell. Just same as Jesus. We think it's just exactly the same. Completely different. It's hard to hear this. It's completely different. The Buddha's approach is more like a doctor. Buddha says, you know what, folks, I have found from my own experience that actions that harm sentient beings, they're going to harm you, sweetheart. This is the key thing behind his exhorting us not to kill. At the very first level, he doesn't even exhort us not to kill because it harms others. That's advanced. That's compassion. He exhorts us not to kill because his fundamental point, which is like the worldview of the Buddhas, which is the law of karma, this natural law within which all beings exist, is that every millisecond of what we all think and do and say programs us, produces the person we become. So seeds in our mind that unless we pull them out will ripen in the future as who we become. So he's given us methods of how to become a Buddha. You know, that's it. He's given us methods of how to become that Buddha. The very first level of practice is at least stop sowing negative seeds. Because every time we kill, lie, steal, harm, this, that, blah, blah, you know, practice bad ethics, we harm others, we therefore harm ourselves and sow seeds in our mind. So for our sake, compassion for ourselves, this is what informs Buddha's exhorting us not to kill at the very first stage. Not because he says so. He is not a punisher. He is not a rewarder. It's like a joke. There's nothing like that in Buddhism. He's exhorting us not to kill because he says, guess what, Robina? It's going to harm you, sweetheart. So it's really like compassion for ourselves. They don't say that. We could say that. So the first level of practice is don't harm sentient beings. Bare minimum. At least stop sowing more poison weeds. Then, as Rinpoche says, next level, purify all the seeds you've already planted that have been driven by anger and attachment to the rest, that will ripen as you're suffering. So pull them out before they ripen. This is the essence of junior school practice. You're taking care of yourself. And nothing to do with your mind yet. Hardly even working on your mind yet. You could argue. Now, the next level, high school, you've controlled your body and speech. You're already a disciplined person, a good ethical person. You immediately get the benefits. Forget about long-term benefit. You become more subdued, more steady. And now you're more capable of getting into the actual job of being a Buddhist. You get to high school, great scope, middle scope. Now you become a Buddhist, the actual unique approach of the Buddha. Good ethics, a good communist is a good ethical person. A good Christian, good Muslim, that's not different. But here is Buddha's specific, unique approach. As Lama puts it, become your own therapist. And this is where Buddha's amazing, brilliant, incredible view of the mind comes in. This is where we become our own therapist. This is where we become a Buddhist. And this is where we really learn to understand how the mind functions. This is Buddha's expertise. So he divides all the contents of our mind, very simple, into rubbish, ridiculous, ego-based, I-based, fear-based nonsense that causes us pain right now, causes us to do dumb things, sow seeds in our mind that ripen its future suffering. And he's found, like a miracle, you can get rid of them, honey. They're not at the core of your being. Second, the good qualities, love, compassion, the kind one, morality, goodness, intelligence, all of these which are connected to some degree to reality, to depend on arising. They are valid and we can develop them to perfection. And the third lot, the mechanics of our mind. Concentration, good memory, attention, intention, discrimination, the qualities anybody needs, whether you're a murderer or a meditator, you need these to work to do your job properly. We want to use them to become a Buddha. So what our job is to learn to distinguish between the crazy, fear-based, I-based, confused nonsense that breaks our hearts and causes to harm others, and the stuff that does define us, that is at the core of our being, is the source of our sanity and our happiness and our ability to be of benefit to others. It's an amazingly powerful job. This is the job of being a Buddhist. This is the heart job. So now in this term, Buddha has articulated 84,000 distinct mental illnesses, distinct mental problems, like a map of the mind. Luckily, it all subsumed to 3. What a relief. He tells us 3, the 3 poisons. I don't know. Has Ling Rinpoche been to Santa Fe? No. He goes around a lot lately, and people have told me that they haven't heard this before either, but he says it everywhere he goes. He said, because the Buddha articulates 84,000 distinct problems and then 84,000 antidotes to all of them. That's just what Buddhist practice is. But he narrows them down to 3 poisons, the 3 toxic emotions. There's a hierarchical relationship. Ego grasping, which is a colloquial term for the root nonsense that even creates a sense of a separate, ridiculous, deluded me in the first place. Then the major voice of that ridiculous ego grasping, this attachment, which we're going to get into, which we must understand. And then when attachment doesn't get what it wants, anger, aversion, whatever, these 3. So as Ling Rinpoche said, 21,000 of those 84,000 are rooted in ego grasping. 21,000 are rooted in attachment. 21,000 are rooted in anger. And the other 21,000 are rooted in all 3. Anyway, that's wonderful. I love that. So this really amazing, vast map of the mind. This is from 3,000 years ago, people, or 2,500 years at least for the Buddha. It's been quietly there, and that big Buddhists learn to become familiar with this map, because this is what you navigate to turn yourself into this amazing Buddha, okay? So the key one here we have to understand in these 3, that all they sort of subsume to these 3, is this attachment. This, always say, this cute, simple, seemingly simple word, But if we want to even think of understanding Tantra, even forget about trying to even understand Bodhisattva path, we have to understand attachment. Absolutely fundamental. Otherwise, it's just demented. We don't even understand Buddhism if we can't understand attachment, It's primordially deep, vast, extensive. Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you for 1 whole year about this attachment. You'll never begin to understand it until we start to work really deep inside. But we've got to start everything with the theories, don't we? So what is it that distinguishes a neurotic state of mind from a valid one? It's pretty simple. 2 qualities. One is the extent to which you're caught up in attachment, anger, or the other 83,997 is the extent to which you're miserable, disturbed, distressed, tight, anxious, separate, bereft, unhappy, very disturbed. No brainer. The other one is, and this is the one that if we get this, we can understand Buddhism. His whole approach to why we suffer. The extent to which we're caught up in attachment, anger, and the other 83,997 ridiculous states of mind is the extent to which we are living in la la land. The extent to which we are not in sync with how things exist. It's crystal clear for the Buddha. When we can get this, we are on track with being a Buddhist, I tell you. And the key way these neurotic states of mind function to cause us to be delusional, the very accurate word in English, is the extent to which they are strong in us. And so how they are delusion is they exaggerate, they embellish. We kind of get it, but we have to think about this to really see how it's true. They're liars deep in our bones, you know. So attachment, the main voice of ego grasping, and effectively the main source of suffering day to day, millisecond by millisecond by millisecond. It's multifaceted, okay? Where are we going? 22. It's multifaceted. The most primordial, and remember the Buddha saying we come from before. We come programmed at the first second of conception with all this stuff. You don't learn it from your mother or your father, you know. You can't blame your Catholic mummy or your Jewish mummy for this. We came programmed with it, okay? So the most primordial level of attachment, and we all recognize this one, is this aching, unbearable, aching feeling of never being enough, never having enough. As Lama Zopa says, this dissatisfaction is the main disease of modern culture. Never enough. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. How much someone tells me they love me, it's never enough. How much I change my body, it's never enough. How much food, it's never enough. This is primordial, painful, aching, energetic level of suffering of attachment. And of course, we never question. We never say, oh, maybe I have enough. Oh, maybe I have had enough. We never ask, because the feeling is we're not enough, so we believe it. Then the next level of this dissatisfaction, naturally, because you're not feeling enough, you hanker after something, completely convinced that, of course, the first level of it is the objects out there, the objects of our senses. Well, when I get that, then I'll be okay. Then I'll get full. So we spend our lives, all sentient beings, all rats, all dogs, all monkeys, all humans, we all are run in the same way. This is being samsaric. We believe we're not enough. We believe something's missing, so we hanker after something. And then according to your connection with certain things, it's cake or bodies or money or power, or you name it. This is a gross level. Convinced that when I get it, I'll get happy. And so the attachment exaggerates the deliciousness, exaggerates your misery and your separateness, exaggerates the missing something, then looks for something, control freak, manipulates to get it, controls to get it, exaggerates his deliciousness, exaggerates the function of that person to make me happy, and then devastated when you discover it's all a load of rubbish. So we go on like that. But we forget the next day and we do it all again. We've been doing it for eons, Buddha says, bashing our heads against brick walls. So this attachment, the essence of it is, if you want to summarize it, is this junkie in us, a junkie in us. It's frantic to get the nice things. It can only cope with the nice things every millisecond. And of course, the nice things means what I think is nice. In other words, attachment is this energy that is frantic to get what I want. That's it. It's the voice of ego grasping. It's the main voice of ego grasping. It's a junkie and it's frantic, and it has and then when it doesn't get what it wants, which is 1,000 times a day, it turns into the panic of anger or aversion, and that's multifaceted as well. Aversion is the bare bones state of mind, which is a thwarted attachment 1,000 times a day. So it's either violent anger, or it's annoyed, irritated, frustrated, upset, daily, day-to-day levels of it. People in this room right now with me who never raise their voice. You've got just as much anger as everybody else, except you don't express it, and yours is harder to see. You're kind of, it's all inside, annoyed, upset, stressed, anxiety, stress, unhappy, something's difficult, and then finally depression and despair. That's the function of aversion, thwarted attachment. Join the universe here, folks. This is us, this is samsara. And these are the essence, and the other 83,997 all come from these. So attachment's the key to understand. Now, to understand Tantra, even a little bit, we have to understand this attachment. It has a function. It has a function. It has a function of exaggerating, making something look delicious, and that's what triggers pleasure. Okay, well, I can't go on too long here. I'll go on forever if I don't. I'll have to talk so fast you won't understand me. What can I do? 10 to 1 hour and 10 minutes left, haven't we? Okay. Never mind going into too much detail. I won't go too much detail. But the tantric view is saying attachment can be used. No, strictly speaking, it's the joy that contact with an attachment object is triggered can be used. The joy that contact with an attachment object triggers can be used. That's the point in Tantra. So, okay, what's this mean? So the first level of practice, you're a junkie for the chocolate cake. First level of practice is leave the cake in the plate, okay? Control your hand, leave it in your lap. And you work on your mind. You work on using discipline to control your hand and not to shove the cake in mindlessly. And this is pretty intense work. Why? Because attachment is poison at this point. No control. Next level, when you've begun to get renunciation, which is the result of the first and second scopes, junior school and high school, as Lama Zopa says, this controlling your body, speech, and mind. How do you end up? This is me talking first. How do you end up? When we think of giving up something, giving up this, renouncing, we think we're going to be this squashed, unhappy person. No, the opposite. When you've given up attachment and given up anger and given up controlling, anger and doing actions with your body and speech that harm others, you're going to be a radiant person. You're going to be joyful. You're going to be stable. You're going to be fulfilled. You're going to be the person you want to become. This is Buddha's method of how to become the person you want to become. It's hard work. So then when you've harnessed this crazy energy, you've got to be joyful. You've got renunciation. So as Lama Zopa says, you've got renunciation when just the thought of another moment of attachment is so repulsive. It's like being in a septic tank. That's way to go, people. This is like so sophisticated. You're practically a Buddha already. It's so high. So don't hold your breath, okay? It's primordially deep, this attachment. So the beginnings of harnessing it is the consequence that you are a marvelous, joyful, in control person. So now when you get to the compassion wing and you start to now focus on the first level, you're focusing on not harming others and controlling your body, speech, and mind, and you are the beneficiary of that. You become this marvelous person. Now you're capable of going to the compassion wing, and now you expand your mind to go, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. So you want to continue working on your mind, but now it's in reference to helping people. It's a completely different shift, a whole different approach. So here you could say you're now qualified to have a chocolate cake and your mind won't go berserk because your compassion is so enormous that it won't disturb you. You're so together, you're so harnessed, you're so in control, in good control. You're really a marvelous practitioner. You've lessened your attachment to an incredible degree. But you can, and even now you can, and even on the Bodhisattva path, the sutra practice, you can use attachment. There's no question. For example, in the sutra level, in the first level, Hinayana, there's no wiggle room. You just have to eat less cake. I'm sorry, because there's no psychology there that enables you to utilize it. But there is in even the sutra teachings. If you're going to have to, if you don't want to give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll and become a monk and go to the mountains and get realizations very quickly, which is the quickest way to do it, 99% of us won't do that, then you want to go and have a nice husband, which means hopping into bed and having babies and houses and dogs and cats and whatever you have. There is a way, if you're going to do that, it's not possible to do that without attachment. I mean, only if you're a bodhisattva. But an ordinary person has to have attachment to do that. So then, but you can't give up the attachment, it's too difficult, but you can harness it. You can mitigate it by adding love and compassion into the mix. There's no wiggle room in the very first level. You just harness yourself and you control. Here, the idea is you put compassion into the mix, you put love into the mix. So you're going to have a boyfriend, at least have a boyfriend who's not going to beat you up every day. At least have a boyfriend who help you practice morality and goodness. So you've already got attachment, but you mitigate it. You put icing on the top. You calm it down. You can't give up all food. You're still going to eat food. So before you shove it in, you do it with bodhicitta. That's the powerful approach in the Mahayana. It's very brilliant psychology if we understand it properly. It's really amazing. Now the tantric level, even more direct. You actually need to eat the cake so that you can energize this bliss that naturally is triggered, which is the nature of this human body we have, of the way it's these yogis of, the tantric great sophisticated yogis have discovered the nature of this physical body we have, the way they describe it. There's something about the bliss that is called happiness, called joy, that's triggered by contact with a sense object, that is utilized by the greatest yogis who especially realize emptiness and got bodhicitta and got single point of concentration. You need the chocolate cake. You need the bliss, which is triggered by contact with an attachment object. So that in general is the psychology of how you can utilize attachment on the tantric path. just to tell you that for what it's worth. So now the whole approach in the tantric one is you're activating your joy. You want to one approach is they call even thinking about we're going to do the practice and talk about it, but by visualizing Tara, they say that all the tantric approaches, you visualize all these different, manifestations of these different qualities. Vajrayogini, purified attachment. Haruka, this one. All the different Buddhas representing different psychological qualities you either want to enhance or transform, because it's such a sophisticated level, especially when you've got realization of emptiness, then we can, all of it's grist for the mill. All of it's grist for the mill. It's the most amazing, sophisticated level, most marvelous understanding of the mind, So one whole approach, which is the meditation on these types of deities, these types of Buddhas, they say it's visualize, you're bringing in your meditation the end result, which is your Buddhahood, into the present. So it's like the ultimate in positive thinking. We think we've invented that in the West. Well, Tantra is the ultimate of positive thinking. And so in the first level of practice, you're harnessing your body, you're harnessing your speech, you're being in control, you're being cautious, you don't go there, you leave the boy alone, you control yourself. You're really getting the fundamental discipline of controlling your body and speech, and then controlling your mind. You become this marvelous person, like a brilliant, beautiful, marvelous person now, controlled. In the tantric level, the bodhisattva level, you're activating more compassion, you're brave and you're courageous, and you can take more risks now because compassion overrides your other rubbish. And even at the tantric level, you're the most sophisticated. So that the fundamental requirements to really actually be a tantric practitioner, you've got to have renunciation, you've got to have a realization of emptiness, and you've got to have bodhicitta. So we have to just pretend. So even for us to enter into Tantra and take an empowerment into Tara, let's say, the very first of the 4 levels of Tantra, you have to have a genuine appreciation for these 3 principal aspects of the path. So renunciation is what you accomplish in junior school and high school, the wisdom wing. Bodhicitta is what you accomplish in the beginnings of the next stages of the sutra path. Amazing, outrageous, where you've made this paradigm shift where others are now more important for you. At least an appreciation of that and an appreciation of emptiness. If you have this, you are qualified to take an empowerment, So that means we have to, so in other words, you can't possibly do postgraduate if you haven't got university under your belt, at least to some degree. You can't possibly enter into university without an understanding of high school, and you cannot possibly get into high school without an understanding of junior school. It's really logical. It's incremental, gradual, progressive knowledge, like all bodies of knowledge, So to even understand it intellectually is incredibly important, utterly necessary, to comprehend these ideas that we're just talking about here very simply. Are we communicating, people? Now I want some questions and we'll go into more details and then we'll do the practice before we finish. We've got an hour left to go. I was thinking we'd have a break, but there's no time. Come on, questions now. Anybody who wants to say anything? Cindy, Mark, Anthony, Jimena, Robbie, Nancy, Phyllis. Anyone got any questions? Start the ball rolling. Please, something. Just sharing, no question. Okay, good. Anyway, just someone start. Who's there? Got a hand up?
Yeah.
Daryl, who are you?
Yes, hi, Robina. Thank you very much.
Good, sweetheart.
Yes, could you say a little bit more about in the practice of Tantra, utilizing joy? What is the purpose of that, or what are they doing with the joy?
Okay, let's just talk about it. Let's just get it the most simple. It's a good question. Thank you very much for that. It's very, very helpful. Let's forget the highly advanced levels, okay? Which literally are the methods that enable us to utilize bliss combined with concentration so that we can get them onto the very subtle level so we can become a Buddha. That's the technology. But let's look at it in ordinary life, which is how Lama Yeshe only ever talked about it. Let's go right back to basics, to high school. And now let's look at how we feel. Look at how we feel if you're angry, attached, hungry and greedy for something, jealous, anxious, stressed, arrogant, low self-esteem, half a dozen qualities, which we all intimately are familiar with. Look how we feel. So tell me, Daryl, how you feel. Just describe how you'd feel.
Just heavy, enclosed in my own self, constricted.
Totally miserable, in other words.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Now tell me how you feel when there's more love and empathy and kindness and forgiveness and generosity. How would you feel then?
Wonderful. Open.
Thank you. There's the answer. There's the answer to your question. So it happens to be, what's one part of the answers, it happens to be Buddha's amazing, simple, unbelievable, over-the-top, outrageous finding is that, and this is indicated by the word Buddha, that virtue, love, empathy, kindness, these are natural to minds. They are integral to who we are. You cannot remove these. So speaking even at a conventional level, these are in the nature, these are relatively speaking in sync with reality. The Buddha says dependent arising or interdependence is reality. Everything that exists is existing interdependently. So you look at our own, if you've got a person next to you, perhaps you're having a relationship with this person, I don't know what kind, maybe she's your sister, who knows who she is, doesn't matter. But if you two are harmonious and kind and friendly, don't you feel lovely? And don't you feel close to each other, don't you? Now, the moment you start to argue, look what happens. The two of you are cut in half. Suddenly there's an overwhelming sense of I, and there's another overwhelming sense of I over there, and there's no meeting. And it's distressing and utterly miserable because delusions are rooted in non-reality and virtues are relatively rooted in reality. And they happen to be the source of our own capacity for joy. Joy is our natural state. So when we're fully developed, we only are joyful. We can only have radiant, perfect bliss. Now, even if you get single point of concentration, in Lama Yeshe's marvelous Mahamudra teaching, and Lama always tried to get us excited, you know, mostly in the text, they'll give you these 9 stages of developing single point of concentration in a very technical way. Now, Lama describes what you'd be like if you had it, and it's mind-boggling. So, you know, as he said, you know, when you've got even some semblance of concentration from having shamatha, there's an amazing technique invented by the Indians, because even temporarily your gross senses and your gross conceptuality has ceased, all there is left is your more subtle level of cognition, which, because the other stuff is subdued, you are naturally radiantly blissful. You are naturally experiencing rapture, ecstasy, bliss, joy. These are all words that are synonymous with the word happiness, but there's just a question of degrees. And happiness, joy, is in the mind, and that's our true nature when the delusions are gone. So in Tantra, the great meditators and yogis have found that when we can access very powerful bliss combined with subtle concentration, that enables the mind to go to the subtlest level, and that subtlest level, like the subtlest microscope of your mind, that level is capable of becoming a Buddha. So it's a technical thing, highly technical. But bliss, enjoy, and love. So I mean, she spent all this time trying to get us to be joyful. Stop being so self-piteous, depressed, anxious, worried. Identify with your joy. And that in Tantra at the most simple level is what we're trying to identify with, you know, our joyful qualities, our good qualities, lift ourselves up, lift our image of ourselves up. That's the day-to-day application of the psychology of Tantra. I mean, the grossest, most disgusting level most people think about in terms of sex, that's kind of nothing, it's just irrelevant. It's not the issue here. It's psychologically every day. Instead of walking, I'm hopeless, I'm no good, I'm creep, I'm fat, I'm ugly, but decide to identify with our good qualities. It's a powerful practice, and that's really encouraging these practices. And that's by doing Chen raising and by doing Tara, you're enhancing, by identifying with those qualities which are yours. By doing that, you're enhancing them. So then you begin to act that way, and you become a more self-respectful, gorgeous human being who presents yourself to others as a lovely human being. It's very powerful, you know. Do you understand what I'm saying, Daryl?
Yes, thank you so much.
Good. So we get the high levels. Just look at the ordinary level.
Right.
And when we're full of overwhelming depression, anxiety, and I'm horrible, you know, there's a sense of such separateness. And we're walking around in our own bubble, we can see nobody else, you know. So even the bodhisattva level is pretty profound, the sutra level. I mean, I always quote Grace Kelly. I love this. She said, of course I have to look beautiful. People have to look at me. This is a bodhisattva action. We think, oh, I can look like what I like, and we walk around smelling and ugly and picking our noses. I can do what I like. Of course you can. But why? How rude of you to be like that to other people. We should present ourselves beautifully to other people. Even to dress up nicely, you know, and to present yourself beautifully to other people is such a gift. It's so profound, you know, to lift up people's minds, to make people happy is incredible. And the happiness is our true nature, you know. This is who we are. This is how we would be if we didn't have delusions. And it causes us to be happy and causes us to help others. So clear, isn't it? Thank you, Daryl. Very helpful. Other questions, please. Any old question? Have discussion. Venerable, go on. What? What about? Ashia, what's the question? Can read it. Can somebody read it, please?
Okay, I can read it.
Good, darling. You speak your own question. Come on. Go.
So what about unintentional acts that inadvertently support those who are hurting sentient beings, like supporting, let's say, a company that we know is hurting the environment, or actually, you know, creating something that's hurting other people?
Yes. So what's the question?
And how does that involve our karma and our collective karma? And if we stop supporting these people hurting sentient beings, what ways can we work with Tara to assist in creating more ease for all concerned?
Well, that's a really big question. But the first part, that's really junior school, entry level, karmic level. So that's, we haven't even begun to discuss that in this talk. We're going to go into this, I'm sure, in other evenings. But our very first level of practice is to harness our body and speech, to control our body and speech, and at least with the best of intentions every day, attempt to refrain from doing things that harm others. So clearly in this massive world where everything is so sophisticated and so interconnected, it's virtually impossible to eat even one grain of rice without knowing that you've just slaughtered many mice have died in that wheat field or that rice field. I mean, I always, you know, because it's wonderful we're vegetarian and vegan, amazing, but doesn't mean the sentient beings don't suffer. So we've got to have a very big view that the universe itself is in the nature of suffering. So all we can do is, that's why we should live in vows and have good morality every day, and at least protect ourselves from creating as much negative karma as possible, so we can begin to purify ourselves, so we can develop compassion and want to help others. So the very least we can do, I mean, even if we know we stop buying that product, very little, the tipping point for when things will start to change is pretty big. So all we can do is take our own personal responsibility, can't we? But know and get delight from the fact that we're purifying our own mind. And so we're helping others on the outside, but we're trying also to become a marvelous person in our own progress. So now the last part of your question was, how do you use Tara, you said?
Yes, you know, in our compassion work, you know, in what way can we use this practice?
Okay. Okay, I understand this. There's two whole levels of practice here, Ashia or Ashia.
Asia.
Yes. Okay, good. So darling, there's two approaches to these practices. One is, it's like let's use the analogy of, let's say you decide you want to become a nutritionist. So you've got to sit there with your stick, looking at the books, studying every day, and then someone says, what are you doing? What are you doing, Asia? You're not helping anybody. But you'll say, but I'm studying how to help, aren't you? So you can be qualified to help. You look like you're being really selfish reading all these books, but you're learning how to help, aren't you? Do you agree with that point? So all of these practices, in one approach to them, they're methods that you are using to help you become a Buddha, so that you're qualified to help others. So that's first of all, you sit there in your own room doing your own Tara practice. It's like you're doing your study. You're not helping anybody yet, but you're qualifying yourself to be able to help others. Can you see that point first?
Yes.
Are you sure? You're clear about that?
Yes.
Okay, then the other approach is, when we understand what a Buddha is, more and more and more, we can use these practices collectively, doing them together. We can use and get the Buddhas to do their job to help the world. I mean, the Buddhas are very powerful beings who actually exist. So our job is to sort of to be intermediaries, to request them to do their job to help others. So Tara can go around and do her job. We do our job trying to become Tara, but Tara's got her job to do, honey. And the more we request all the Buddhas to do their thing, and we do collective practices, that's why Lama Zopa every day these days in Courtin, giving all this advice to all the people about coronavirus, helping us collectively do practices that will help the Buddhas, will get the Buddhas to do practices that can help the world change, that can purify at a very deep, long-term level. So there's two different approaches here. The Buddhas themselves doing their work, our relationship with the Buddha, and then our becoming a Buddha ourselves. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, there's masses we can do, in other words, with these practices. Yes.
Thank you.
Good, darling. What else, people? Someone else, other questions?
Venerable Robina, there was a question in the chat box from Amy, I believe, just before Aisha's question.
Okay, good, go on.
The question was, let me pull it up here. I understand that before we can even talk about Tantra, we need to really embody bodhicitta. Is this correct? And if it is, then should we just focus on bodhicitta before anything else?
Okay, I understand. It's, you know, there's two approaches. There's different ways of talking about it. if you're studying music and you got from grade 1 to grade 12 and you graduate as Bach at the end, like you graduate as Buddha, obviously you can't possibly, and this is the crucial word, you can't accomplish grade 2 until you've accomplished grade 1 to some degree. So there's no way you can leap into grade 12 Bach music and think you're going to accomplish that before you've done all the previous classes. It's very obvious. It's incremental and gradual. But that doesn't mean you can't try to practice that grade 12 piece. You can't, it doesn't mean you can't go to that and even try to practice it. Of course you can. And the more you do that, the more marvelous it is, but you won't accomplish it until you got to a certain stage. So here, you don't, therefore you can start with junior school. You have to take vows. You live in vows of morality. You do lots of purification. You don't wait till you've perfected that until you then start to work on your mind. You'll be here for eternity. So to some degree, you begin to understand intellectually and you have some level of practice to the degree that now you can start to work on your attachment. If I'm in a relationship with you, let's say, my friend Don, and I get so angry and I vomit over him every day and beat him up, there's no space for me to go near my mind yet. I've got to leave the poor man in peace until I've got some semblance of control over my body. When I've got some semblance of control over my body, I can then begin to see the anger more clearly that is informing the punches. So you can still then practice that, and then you can even begin to practice generosity and kindness. But you haven't accomplished anything yet, but you've got to understand things progressively and know the relationship between each stage. And of course, then you take initiation. If you've got some semblance, I said before, the 3 principles, if you've got some genuine appreciation and understanding for enunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, that's what's required. Tsongkhapa does not say, this is his 3 principles, he does not say you must have bodhicitta. No way. You'll be waiting for several thousand eons for that. No, as long as you've got a certain level of appreciation, you are now qualified to take an empowerment, and then you can practice doing Chen raising. You practice Tara, but you won't realize Tara until you've got the other ones. So that's the approach. So, and also the other thing is there's an advantage in having it all, because the other approach is this: when we realize that anything we think and do and say, we are programming our mind. This is karma. So we want to have in our toolkit, we want all these tools. We want to have these vows. We want to have the tantric vows, the bodhisattva vows, the lay vows. These are all the tools we need from here to enlightenment. So grab the opportunity, as long as we all qualify and have got proper renunciation, do each step seriously. It's marvelous to have these vows, and it's marvelous to want to keep them, because they're the tools we need to be able to become enlightened in the future. They sow seeds in the mind really powerfully. That's the approach. I hope that helps for that question. And if it doesn't, please follow up with another question. So the essence of Tara, I mean, the general attitude of Tantra we've been talking, but just get the understanding of the meaning of Tara. And by doing that visualization, we're going to do it at the end, you'll see. First of all, you visualize her out there, and you kind of identify, you're acknowledging she represents those qualities. And she's like a mirror image of our own potential. And then we'll do this little visualization where we're going to purify our body, speech, and mind. And then we imagine dissolving her into us. And then we imagine, you're play acting, and now I am becoming oneness with Tara's body, speech, and mind. So you're sowing the seeds of becoming that. It's like, it is positive thinking. You like imagining, you're playing tennis, and you sit there, you do a little contemplation, and you visualize yourself on the court at Wimbledon. You visualize yourself winning Wimbledon. That sows a seed to do that very thing. That's these practices. You're bringing the future result, your result, and you're bringing it right into the present. So psychologically, it's super powerful. It's super meaningful. It's not just like crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's super powerful. And then day-to-day life, you're acting, you're trying to, especially if you're taking initiation, you have a commitment to see yourself as that Buddha. You have a commitment to hear all sound as mantra. You have a commitment to see all beings as Tara. So also you're lifting your view very powerfully into this more transcendental mind, a view of the world instead of the crummy, ugly, revolting world. So, you're lifting your mind up, which is another whole approach that Tantra talks about. The first level of practice is like play safe, control your body, speech, and mind, control your body and speech, and don't harm others. Then you get to begin to control your mind. This is still kind of all the cautious level. And this is expressed in the lay person's vows and the monks and nuns' vows. These are the vows of refraining from harming. And these vows, there's no wiggle room. You just don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. And this is very powerful. And that harnesses you. You become this, like I said, this marvelous person. But now you get to the bodhisattva path, more expansive, more marvelous. Now you now can connect to wanting to help others. So So you're lifting your mind up all the time, you know. By the time you get to Tantra, you're imagining you are Tara. You're imagining all the universe is marvelous. You're imagining. So they say one of another way they talk in Tantra about why we suffer is because we have due to delusions, due to ego grasping, due to the habit of ego grasping and attachment and anger, we live in the junky pits of misery, you know. So we've got to lift ourselves and to begin to identify with ourselves as a transcendental being. So we've been trying to develop a more pure view of the universe. Even though you see a person, it's like, you know, even if you see people fighting, instead of being freaked out about it and angry, you visualize that they're this, you know, wrathful deities. It's a whole other level of reality that you learn to use to help to interpret the world in a different way, mixed, of course, completely with an understanding of emptiness, you know. It's very marvelous psychologically, you know. What else, people? And it's optimistic. It's super optimistic, you know, it's huge. And then you see, the more we can identify with our positive qualities, which you're doing in the Bodhisattva path and in the Tantric path, the more we identify with our goodness and our wisdom and our clarity and our kindness, every day you think those qualities. Of course, it's like an atomic bomb on all the misery. Because when we're sort of overwhelmed by our misery, I'm hopeless, I'm negative, I'm no good. I mean, you're dragging yourself to hell. And people can tell you 27 times you've got good qualities, you won't believe it. So with the tantric practices, you're identifying with those qualities because they are there and it enhances them. It's powerful positive thinking. It's powerful psychology. Very necessary, especially in this miserable, miserable world, you know. And the more you can identify your good qualities and your potential, the more easy it is to own your rubbish. If you're so steeped in your rubbish, you can't, it's like having your hands in your own shit, as a therapist, Buddhist friend of mine said, and that's very important. If you're overwhelmed only by that, you'll get so depressed. But you've got to identify with your goodness. But we're almost too scared to, because we're so addicted to our misery, you know. Oh, I haven't got any good qualities. Every one of us in this room can blurt out 27 bad qualities, but I ask you your good ones, you'll be blushing and embarrassed. Oh, I don't have any good qualities, we'll say. We want everybody else to tell us we have, but we don't believe it. So this is the irony of ego, you know. So Tantra is so powerful as an antidote to that self-pity, as Lama Yeshe would call ego, the self-pity me, you know. It's very powerful. And Lama was amazing at this. Just, he never stopped to lift us up. He was incredibly kind, you know. What else, people? Any other question? Stella, Cindy, Adam. I'm not trying to make you embarrassed. I can't see your faces, but never mind. You might be embarrassed. I don't know. Leah, Robbie, Nancy. Come on, people. Talk to me. Questions?
Hi, Venerable. I would like to ask you, Jimena.
Yes, Jimena.
About white Tara. Could you please explain me a little bit?
Well, she's the same meaning. What Tara is, but she's white Tara and she represents long life. That's it. It's a different energy. Same name, but different manifestation. She's white, got different holding different things. So she represents, she's especially represents long life. So I suppose you can also say she represents healing as well. You can argue that as well. And there's a different mantra. You do have a long life for other people. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. What else, darlings? Any old thing? Maybe you want a 5-minute break to think about it. No, we don't need a break, I don't think. No. Okay, what else? I don't know what to say. We need about 20 minutes for the meditation. So we'll do it nicely. That'll be some 22. And we've got 20 minutes before then. We've got 20 minutes before then for more discussion. We've talked about renunciation, which is the first realization to have, the first recognition, the first of these 3 prerequisites to be ready to want to even enter into taking an empowerment into someone like Tara. We've got to understand suffering and its causes. So here we mainly discussed the mind component, which is the main one, and that's delusions, ego grasping and attachment and aversion and all the other dramas, you know. We also have to understand karma, which we touched on very briefly. So that deal is this, you know, it's the way minds run. Karma, the law of karma is Buddha's amazing explanation of the universe. It's like his worldview of what is suffering, what is happiness, what are minds, what are sentient beings, and then the learning from this, you know. So Buddha says we're all a product of this natural law. No one made us. It's not punishment. It's not reward. It's a natural law. It's a very powerful concept. We're so used to religion thinking God's law. And religion is God's law. It's like this scientist years ago in New Zealand said to me, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Which is, of course, the concept in creative religions, this revelation. And he was shocked when I said, would you ask Einstein who revealed relativity to him? People laughed. Of course they did. Because we know that Einstein is this dude who used his intelligence, who observed the universe, the world as it is. And he looked at it and he observed it and he came up with these findings about it and he established and codified these laws and then he presented his findings. That is no more and no less the Buddha. And that might be a shock to us to spell it out so bluntly, but that's exactly the Buddha. He's this amazing person who used his intelligence, but we've got to remember here the level of cognition that he was using as we don't posit in the Western world. Way more subtle than conceptuality, a level of consciousness that we don't even posit in neuroscience or psychology. And that we have to factor that in. It's a level of cognition that enables you to see the past and the future. This is a subtler, more powerful, more amazing level of cognition. So with that level of mind, Buddha was able to see the natural universe, to see the world as he saw it, and he established this law called karma. These Hindus had seen it already, so he established and presented it. And that law is this: it runs the universe, or all beings run within the law of natural law of cause and effect. That every millisecond of what every one of us thinks and does and says programs our consciousness, sows seeds in our consciousness. But unless we do something about those seeds, they will naturally ripen in the future as one, a type of rebirth, two, a tendency in the mind of that rebirth, three, an experience at the hands of others, pretty much, and four, even the physical world that you occupy. So the way the physical world impacts upon you, the main cause of that, your past actions, driven by your states of mind. Two, the way you're seen and treated by others, main cause of that, your past actions, driven by what's in your mind. Three, your own tendencies, main cause of those, not your mummy and daddy, your past actions, their habits, and even your own very humanity itself, or your lion nature or your ant nature. Main cause of that, your past actions, driven by a certain state of mind. It's a very technical explanation of the universe, you know. This is huge, fundamental. And the mind does it. The mind creates karma, and then it's helped by the body and speech. They're its servants, and they do the work, you know. So this is the fundamental one. So suffering comes from actions that are labeled negative, which is an action of body and speech at the first level, at least, of heavy actions driven by a delusion. Happiness is a result of an action done with body and speech driven by virtue. That's the most basic level of breaking it down. And it gets more and more elaborate in the way it breaks all this process down. And it's a natural law. There is no boss. There is no rewarder. There is no punisher. We do it to ourselves. It's self-creation, His Holiness said, you know. So given very simply that we want happiness and don't want suffering, even if we just talk the simplest level, it's a no-brainer. We better learn, if we want veggies in our garden and we don't want weeds, we'd better learn botany. So here we're talking Buddha's botany, because our life is our garden. Very simple. What's in it? The environment, the people, the things, the creatures, the good, the bad. Who created them? You, baby. It's your karmic appearance, as Lama Zopa says. It's pretty profound, you know. So then you start to take responsibility. It lessens anger, it lessens attachment, it lessens self-pity, it lessens blame, it lessens guilt. It's profound. High school, now you start to work on the mind. You distinguish the delusions from the virtues. And then you have this amazing renunciation. That's your first prerequisite. Now next, bodhicitta. Outrageous, insane, over the top, you know. Unbelievable paradigm shift in your mind, where now others are more important than you. The bodhisattva path is continuing to work on your mind. That doesn't change. All the way from here to Buddhahood, you work on your mind. But here, the first level is in relation to protecting you from harming others because you're sick of suffering. Here, it's now helping you help others because they're the same as you. We're all in the same boat, you know. Third, understanding emptiness. That all these teachings lead to that. You know. Understanding the way things exist, finally. And the way to put that is simply that everything that exists, contrary to what we assume and believe, but we have never thought we assumed or believed it, that things don't have an intrinsic nature. The things exist interdependently, basically. I'm sure in the other teachings, Mary, isn't it, you had emptiness in mind when you had the other topics? for the rest of the week. Well, I'm sure we'll go into more detail then. These are the 3 prerequisites. Some understanding of karma and its causes. Get renunciation from this. Junior school and high school. Some understanding of the idea of compassion. What it means is emphasis on others. And you can't possibly have that. That's the crucial point, how you cannot have compassion first without some renunciation. It's impossible, literally impossible. And that's the biggest mistake that Buddhists make. We think, oh, I don't have to come. Renunciation, yeah, I don't think about myself. Karma, I don't think about myself. I think about others. You can never have proper compassion. Ever. Impossible until you understand renunciation. Because compassion is dependent upon understanding karma and delusions. And you've got to be so sick of your own suffering and know its causes before you realize you're sick of everybody else's suffering and its causes, because they're all in the same boat as you. And that's why the compassion we have now is so limited. Our compassion is based on anger. We see a poor little mouse being hurt and we want to kick the dog. We see a poor baby being hurt. We hate the person who did it. We're looking desperately now for who to blame for coronavirus. There's always going to be somebody out there who's going to be the naughty person. When you understand karma for yourself, you realize we are all in the same boat. Everybody is experiencing the fruits of their past actions. So the victim right now was the oppressor of the past life. The oppressor of this life will be the victim of the future life. And we keep going eternity until we start pulling ourselves together and changing something. So that's the basis of understanding compassion. And when you've got understanding of renunciation, compassion is easy. Without it, it's too difficult, too stressful. We can't cope. Then, cut the root of everything. Cut the misconception about the ridiculous self-pity, separate, bereft, lonely, concrete, set in stone me and everything else, And then we're out of here. And then we get to Tantra and speed it up and become Tara, and then you can do what you like. Come back in 1 million bodies and have fun and 49 boyfriends and help 1 million people. I'm just joking. I'm not joking, no. Questions, come on, before we do the meditation. There's the 3 principal aspects of the path, a bit quickly. Can you all hear me? I'm not shouting so loud. Normally I shout. Can you hear me quite well, can you? Good, okay. Any more questions?
I have one question. My name is
Good. Who is talking?
Victor.
Victor, that sounds where's Victor? I can't see you.
I don't have a picture.
Okay, good. Talk to me, Victor.
I'm a follower of Kuan Yin. Is Kuan Yin and Tara the same thing?
Well, the people say so. I mean, over the centuries, these Buddhas all manifest in different shapes and sizes, don't they? And so I think, Kuan Yin, people often talk about her as being like a manifestation of Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion. But I think also you can think of her as Tara, because you look at the way she's sitting. That's the same style as Tara. They're kind of action ladies. They're ready to hop up to help others. So I think also Tara, you're exactly right. I think so. Same.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. What else, people?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Let me see if I can see you as well. No, I
This
can't
is
see you. But I
Sarah.
can see you. Sarah, yes, darling, talk to me.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if one of us wanted to practice the tantric path, what would that look like? Do we have to get rid of the dog and the house and our wardrobe?
No, darling, no, you keep your dog and you keep your house. In fact, you can get another dog and another house, because you've now got a whole different view. You've got renunciation. You really understand attachment. You're not clinging to everything. You've got love and kindness, and you're trying to develop your own marvelous qualities and be a happy human being. Very different from that.
But how do we develop deeply along the tantric path?
By going to junior school first and controlling your body, speech, and mind, and living in vows of not hurting others. And then by going to high school and learning to know about your mind and taking responsibility, abiding by the laws of karma and giving up blame and anger and jealousy and depression. And then going to the bodhisattva path and practicing compassion and love for others and patience and generosity. And then going to the tantric path. It's progressive, step by step by step. It all kind of integrated. It's all just sort of levels of psychology, levels of developing our marvelous potential, I mean,
There's no way to speed up this process?
No, darling, the only way to speed it up is to work at it 24 hours a day. Like if you're going to become a doctor in a year, if you study 24 hours a day, right? But we need our breaks and our holidays and our sleeps, don't we? So speeding it up just means the more you're committed to doing anything, you can speed it up, couldn't you? The more renunciation you get, the more you practice, the more you work on your mind, the more you practice compassion, the more you practice patience, the more you're able to speed your process up. It's like that. It's like anything we practice. You
Robina?
understand? Yes.
It's Betty.
Yeah, hang on a minute, Betty. I haven't finished with Sarah.
Yeah, well,
Hang
perhaps,
on, Betty. I haven't finished with Sarah, darling. Hang on a second. Just let me finish with Betty, Sarah first.
okay.
Sorry, Sarah, did we finish, darling?
We don't have to go to India. And
No,
where-
darling, you don't. There's lots of good teachers and lots of good Dharma centers. Or where do you live, sweetheart?
Taos.
Oh, honey, child, you got right now these people. You got lots of good quality people right there in Taos and just down the road in Santa Fe. So you can rely on them to give you good, solid, reliable teachings from a reliable source. I can guarantee you, you're in the right place, baby.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Betty.
Robina, it's Betty.
Yes, Betty.
Perhaps she's talking about initiations and empowerments.
Betty, she can ask her own questions.
What about
That's a good
taking
question.
empowerments
Betty
What,
has,
Sarah?
or Tantra?
Just a moment. What, Sarah?
Betty has a good question.
That's Betty's. That's Betty's question. That's great. So, what's your question, Betty?
Is it not essential to take empowerment or entitlements for Tantra?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's what,
But she didn't say it. I answer what I hear.
exactly.
I'm not trying to speculate. If Sarah wants to ask, but I mean, that's just one tiny step in the whole big process.
Right.
Details in every level of practice. There's details in junior school. There's details in high school. There's details in the Bodhisattva path, and there's details at the highest level. Of course, there are details. But Sarah didn't ask me that. No, I'm going to take things on the way she said them. No more and no less.
Correct.
Good. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. But the point is, Sarah, you know, it's a very, I mean, the Tibetan Buddhists are pretty amazing. I don't know if you know much about the history, but they their system was, living a really amazing living system about the 8th or 9th century. And they really kept it intact for so many years. So I think if you really look out for good Tibetan Buddhist teachers, you've got to really check their resources. I mean, some people would probably be maniacs. You should really do your research and check up. So I'm recommending to you, for example, the center in Santa Fe. You see the man on the screen here, Don Handrick. He's the teacher there. And so he's one of the teachers there. And he's graduated from one of our courses. He's been around for many, many years. They're really good people, you know, really good qualified people who know the philosophy, who know the psychology, and who can lead us all in the right direction. It's important you do your research and you have confidence in that. Do you see what I'm saying, Sarah?
Yeah.
Good, darling. Good. Wonderful. Good. You've got to find the right people. There's a lot of rubbish around, I tell you. So check your sources, even when you buy books, you know. Some people, I mean, we Western people are a bit ridiculous. We're a bit arrogant, I think. We think it's religion. Anybody can make up what they like, and you go to one weekend course and you have a nice feeling and you write a book about it. We Westerners are a bit rude, I think. So it's really very amazing, the Tibetan Buddhist system. They're very rigorous and very, very humble, and it's really, you got to find very good teachers. So you keep searching, Sarah. You'll find your way. You'll find your own path, Sarah.
Okay, thank you.
Good, darling. Thank you so much, Sarah. What else, people?
Venerable Robina,
We can
Mary
start
Jo
with
has a
Mary.
question.
Who?
Mary Jo,
Okay, good. Is she going to speak to me or are you going to say the question?
I asked her to. Mary Jo, Mary Jo's question is there a Tara with a musical instrument? This is from Mary Jo.
I don't know. Is there somebody can tell me? I don't know all the Taras. There must be. I bet you she has so many, I'm sure. I just don't know. I'm really sorry. I can't answer that. Maybe somebody else knows. If I don't know that, I'm very sorry. But there is one deity with an instrument. What's her name? What's her name? What's her name? Anybody know? I don't know. I'm sorry. Can't say anything. Sarasvati. There you go. Sarasvati. That's right.
Yes.
She's like wisdom, a female wisdom. She's Manjushri's consort. That's right. She's got a little guitar or something or other. So listen, I think we should do the meditation, okay? Yes, I'll guide you in a simple little meditation on Tara, which is just expressing this essence of this approach, okay? There you go, 1 of the 21. Well done. So just kind of, first of all, let me just go through the main points of the classic way that all the great meditators over the centuries have recommended that we sit. There's a particular, the body doesn't meditate, okay? It's your mind that meditates. But the body needs to be in a conducive position, okay? So, first of all, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, if you can sit in full lotus position is very auspicious. And even you can sit for a second, because all the greatest meditators, the really advanced meditators, they're able to do that. And there's something about the way that the body can be very stable. And many people who meditate for a long time, you can sit very stable. But most of us maybe can't do that. So if you just for a second, you can. If not, don't worry. If you want one leg on the other thigh, fine. If you can't do that, sit ordinary cross-legged. If you can't do that, sit in a chair, whatever we can accomplish, okay? So that's the first point about your legs. The next one is your back. Your back isn't straight, but have it upright. But as soon as we sit upright, what happens is we squash our muscles. So relax your muscles. Your body upright, but flop your muscles, okay? Flop your muscles, your abdomen, your shoulders. Body upright, but flop the muscles. Be very relaxed. Upright, but relaxed. The next one is your hands. Just don't worry, have them in your lap. Any way you like. There's a certain different mudras or gestures, but just have them resting on your knees or in your lap, as you wish. Then your head is the most important. The head is well, major one. There's several points about your head. First of all, your chin, your jaw relaxed, but your chin slightly tucked in. If your head is thrust back, it kind of makes your mind agitated. That's no good. So your head slightly tilted forward first. Second, your jaw relaxed, and then your lips slightly apart. And then your tongue, the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. And all the great meditators from the past have found that stops you from dribbling. It's very practical. There's nothing holy about this. It's that over the years, their experience, or stops you from having to swallow all the time, swallow the spit, for the ones who meditate a long time. So, okay, and then finally your eyes. All the great meditators also say, those who are meditating all day, every day, doing their job of becoming a Buddha, they, when their mind's very subtle, their senses aren't working at all. But if your eyes are open, the light can come in, so it keeps your mind very sharp. But for most of us, we've got no concentration, so we're going to get very distracted. So keep your eyes closed, but have your eyes beneath your eyelids, looking down, as if you're looking along your nose at the ground. So we just kind of now just settle into this position, okay? Very relaxed. Your legs, your back. If you're sitting in a chair, it's really important you don't slump into the back of the chair. It's really important you have your feet on the ground and you hold up your own back. That's important, if you can. If you're in a really comfy couch, you might be in trouble. You'll just go off to sleep. So it's good to sit upright, okay? Your muscles relaxed, body upright, head slightly forward, chin tucked in, lips apart, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate, eyes looking down beneath your eyelids, as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. You can have your eyes slightly open if you like, but downwards looking. It's up to you, you work it out. So we're going to do about 20 minutes. So I'll just tell you before we even start doing Tara, the commonest dangers, the two dangers, as soon as we close our eyes, it's pretty natural. The first danger is you just go straight to sleep. It's useless, This is really severe sometimes. So you've really got to, alert about that. But the other extreme when we're doing a meditation is our mind wanders. We start getting all excited and we forget what we're doing. These are the two extremes. So we have to kind of be alert to be of those two dangers while we're doing the meditation. So, okay, we'll just do this meditation in a very relaxed way. So we're using our creative imagination. We're using our thoughts and we're imagining things. But every thought counts, remember? This is just fantasy. Every thought we have sows a seed in the mind. So what we're going to do is we're imagining this Buddha. We're imagining purifying our body, speech, and mind. We imagine bringing her into us. And then we imagine enlightening all sentient beings. So we sow all of those seeds in our mind. It's amazing. Be so delighted to be doing this little exercise, okay? So if you're very familiar with this Buddha Tara, then fine. If not, don't worry. Just imagine, do your best. So she's sitting at like eye level on a multicolored lotus. She's in this style, this bodhisattva style, she as you see in the paintings and the statues, if you're familiar. And she's got gorgeous silken clothes on, like rainbow kind of clothes on the lower part of her body. Her upper part often is just, she's got nothing on, these gorgeous breasts. She's green light. Green is like action energy, And in the Indian style, this is the Tibetan depiction of it, they've got lots of jewelry. She's got these gorgeous necklaces and on her upper arms, on her wrists, on her ankles. And everything's made of light. It's radiant light. She's so gorgeous, and this beautiful face, blissfully joyful, happy face. And she's looking at you with incredible love and kindness. And if you've got a spiritual teacher, it really helps to imagine that it's their mind manifesting as Tara to benefit us. You know, it makes it very personal. This radiant green light body sitting on this multicolored lotus, and rainbow colored clothes on her legs, like trouser type things you see. Upper part of her body, kind of maybe some silken kind of, you know, shawls. And her left leg, her face is utterly beautiful, radiant with eyes slightly wide open, looking very loving, very compassionate, very sweet red mouth. Her hair partially held up in a top knot, and this 5-pointed kind of crown like a tiara on the front of her head. And her hair, you imagine down her back, the rest of her hair. Everything's crystal clear, beautiful. And she's, you know, her left hand is in her left hand is at her heart, her fingers pointing up. And her thumb and her ring finger, you imagine, holding the stem of a blue upara flower that blooms at her left ear, the lotus flower, a blue one. Her right hand is on her right knee. So her left leg is drawn in like in meditation, but her right leg is resting. Like if you've seen the Kuan Yin pictures or Tara, her right leg is resting on another little multicolored lotus in this very relaxed pose, showing that she's ready to hop up to help sentient beings. And her right hand is resting lightly on her right knee, and her palm is upwards in this gesture of like giving, you know, very generous. And the thumb and the ring finger on her right hand at her right knee are holding the stem of another blue upara flower that blooms at her right ear. Everything's radiant light, so beautiful, you know, radiant, just to make your mind happy. If you like, you can think of her as like a mirror image of what you can become. It's like, you know, you've got a poster of your favorite tennis player, and you're looking at every way, you know, she holds the tennis racket, how she's sitting. That's a mirror image of what you want to become. You look at it, you think about it. This is exactly the same here. So we're imagining here this gorgeous naked green lady looking so divine and so radiant. She's a manifestation. She's got all the qualities of enlightenment. She's infinitely wise, infinitely compassionate. But this particular aspect is of power, action, success, cut through the obstacles, make things happen, courage, bravery. That's what she's representing. And we want that badly, all of us. So now you imagine, so compassionately, she sends from her brow very radiant laser beams of white light that penetrate your brow, instantly filling you. And first of all, imagine this radiant laser white light. It purifies, it heals your body. Imagine all the pain, the sickness, all the stuff we have with our bodies, completely healing us. This blissful white light filling us. First of all, just think that, imagine that, be delighted. And this white light continues to come from her brow, so compassionately entering your brow. And this time it also purifies, imagine this, all the karmic seeds, all the imprints in our mind from all the actions we've ever done in this life that have harmed sentient beings. The killing, the ants, the cockroaches, you know, maybe you're the ex-husband, who knows? The baby maybe you aborted. I mean, all us, you know, I mean, I had an abortion when I was 23, I always think this one. All the sentient beings we've harmed with our bodies, maybe the stealing, maybe we've abused others. And then we think, if it makes sense to us, all the actions we've ever done since beginningless time in all our countless past lives, the imprints of which are stored in our mind. Nothing goes astray, Buddha says. All of these imprints of all the harm we've ever done with our bodies to harm any sentient being, completely eradicated. Imagine, think of it, totally eradicated by this blissful, blissful white light, totally filling us. So radiant, so powerful. All the negative actions of our body gone, finished. Namatara very compassionately continues to send this white light, these laser beams entering our brow, filling us completely. This time, filling us with our marvelous potential to only be of benefit to sentient beings. So first of all, even just now, imagining our body blissfully light, and imagine whoever we meet, the birds, the ants, the cockroaches, the humans, whoever sees us, whoever tastes us, whoever smells us, we can only be of benefit to them. Can you imagine this? Not to mention all the power to be able to manifest in countless future lives, in countless bodies, to benefit countless sentient beings. This is our natural potential when we become Tara ourselves. Imagine completely full of this marvelous potential to only be of benefit to sentient beings, impossible to harm them with our bodies. Full of this white light. So Lama Tara, Guru Tara, Buddha Tara compassionately, wonderfully, joyfully sends this time laser beams of red light from her throat that penetrate our throat so forcefully, completely filling us. And this time purifying all the nonsense of our speech, all our inability to express ourselves clearly, all the way we're misinterpreted by people, all our angry speech, all our hurt speech, our depressed speech, all our lying, all our speculating, all our bad-mouthing people behind their backs, which we love to do, all of this nonsense of our speech and all the imprints of all the harm that we've ever done. Of course, this is mostly as humans, since beginning this time to sentient beings with our speech, completely annihilated by this blissful, blissful red light filling us. How amazing. Again, Buddha Tara so compassionately sends these radiant beams of red light entering our throat and filling us, and this time filling us with what else? But our marvelous, marvelous, they call it the power of speech. And you think about it, we all need speech in our lives. We need people to listen to what we say. We want people to believe us. We want people to trust our words. If we're trying to help people, if we work with people, we want people to listen to us, to communicate. It's so beneficial to have speech that's beneficial speech. This is the main gift of the Buddha, powerful, beneficial speech. So imagine full of this incredible power, this marvelous red light, such that any sound we utter, even our laugh, even good morning, can only benefit whoever hears us. Imagine this amazing quality, power of speech, this blissful red light filling us to only be of benefit to sentient beings. Even the birds who hear us, even the mosquitoes, even the ants, they benefit from our speech. How amazing. Now, Guru Buddha Tara very compassionately sends from her heart chakra in the center of her chest powerful beams of blue light, blue like the sky, that instantly penetrate and instantly fill us and do what? But completely, instantly, and eradicate, annihilate all the ego grasping, all the sense of separateness, all the anxiety and fears, all the jealousy, all the depression, all the attachment, all the anger, all the arrogance, all the low self-esteem, all this stuff that seems to run us sometimes, that is not at the core of our being, that does not define us. Instantly gone, eradicated, full of this blissful, blissful blue light. How amazing. Again, Buddha sends his marvelous blue laser beams that fill us completely. And with what? What else? Our true nature, our love, our compassion, our wisdom, our kindness. Incredible. Can't imagine. This is who we really are, you know, full of these marvelous qualities. Blissful, joyful, wise, compassionate, full of this blue light. So one more time, what Tara does now, Buddha Tara, she's going to send these three lights simultaneously. And we imagine it's like even more powerful, the white from the brow, red from the throat, and blue from the heart, removing even the subtlest imprints of any nonsense and causing us to become this incredibly powerful, unbelievable Buddha Taras, our own Buddha Tara, you know, infinitely wise, infinitely compassionate, infinitely powerful. This is finally our true nature, able to benefit trillions of sentient beings. Three lights simultaneously, white to the brow, red to the throat, blue to the heart. Imagine. So now imagine that the multicolored lotus that Buddha Tara is sitting on, and the little multicolored lotus that her right leg is resting on, that is dissolved into light into her body. You imagine. And then you imagine that she comes to sit above our heads, facing the same way as us. Imagine. And then you imagine, very happily, she dissolves into green light. And then we imagine she completely absorbs into us. And then we imagine that the energy of Tara's body, speech, and mind, and the energy of our lamas, our spiritual teachers' body, speech, and mind, and our own body, speech, and mind energy, they completely merge. Completely, we're full of this. And as Lama Yeshe says, it becomes union, oneness. Buddha's body, speech, Tara's body, speech, mind, the Lama's body, speech, mind, my body, speech, mind, same thing. Imagine this, full of this oneness. And now for about a minute, just imagine expanding to fill the universe. No thoughts, just completely blissful, radiant, vast, clear, no thoughts. one. So now finally, thinking we become Buddha. How incredible, amazing. But then what? Why are we Buddha? Because we want to benefit sentient beings. That's what's compelled us for countless lifetimes, driven by amazing compassion, because of the unbearable suffering of beings. We realize we are suffering, now we see the suffering of others, and now we become Buddha, and now we have no choice, but we must benefit them. That's our job. So we must manifest to benefit sentient beings. But first of all, imagine now all sentient beings. And we can divide them into three categories. All those who are the object of our attachment, our beloveds, the objects of our aversion, people we don't like, and 99.99% all the objects of our indifference, all the strangers. And we have them pervading space. So right in front of us, eyeball to eyeball, we imagine the people we don't like, whom we have aversion for, who've hurt us, whom we are angry with. Just imagine, even a few of them right in front of you. Objects of our aversion. Your ex-husband, your next door neighbor, who knows? Your sister, people who've harmed you, people you're angry with, hurt by. Then to the left in front, your beloveds. Of course, they keep changing. It could be the enemy one day and the friend the next. But imagine our beloveds to the left, the objects of our attachment, to the left in front of us. So now to the right, but everywhere else, all the 99.99% of the universe, all the strangers, all the beings of all the universes we imagine, all the realms of existence, but all in the form of humans. To the right in front of us, to behind, to the right, to the left, above, below, and to the horizon, as far as we can imagine. The whole of the universe full of all the other beings, all in the form of human beings, which is the form they can get enlightened in. Just imagine this. And imagine our job now is to benefit them all. That's why I'm a Buddha. It's my job. Wish only to help them. So imagine now from our heart, trillions and trillions of little green taras go out. In front, behind, everywhere, all the directions, entering into the hearts of all the enemies, all the friends, and all the strangers. Imagining this, wanting this. And first of all, imagining taking away all their suffering and all the causes of their suffering, which is their own past negative actions. Removing completely all their suffering. Every one of them. Trillions of taras going into them, removing their suffering. How incredible. I'm going to sing the Tara mantra a couple of times if you know it. If not, just listen and imagine all these taras going out, taking away the suffering of all these suffering sentient beings. Om Tare Tutare Ture Svaha. 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 Imagine all of them free of their suffering. Can you imagine it? And now the taras go out again, and now we give them everything they want. That's practicing love. The first one is compassion, taking away their suffering. Now we give them everything they need, and this is the practice of love. So again, the taras go out, and now you imagine every one of them all receiving everything they need: good health, food, friends, joy, happiness, beautiful weather, no sickness, all the realms of existence, whatever any being needs, you imagine you're giving it to them. These taras pouring out from our hearts to all directions, entering into all these billions of beings, giving them everything they need. Imagine this, wanting this. How amazing. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. 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 Totally joyful, every single one. Can you imagine? Receiving everything they need. And now we send our taras this time, and now we turn them into their tara. They all become tara. Imagine this, these tiny taras from our heart entering into everyone, transforming everyone into their own true nature of their own tara. Everyone becomes the Buddha. How amazing. Imagine this. Want this. Be so delighted. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. 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 So now imagine all these billions of taras all dissolving to green light, all entering into us, enhancing even more brilliantly our own tara nature. Just finish with that. Imagine that. All of them dissolving into us. Green light. And we finish with this marvelous aspiration of the bodhisattvas, the four immeasurable thoughts. Just think, okay, think. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free of attachment, ignorance, and hatred. May they abide so. I will make this happen. That's the brave attitude of the bodhisattva. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it will be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it will be if all sentient beings could have happiness and its causes. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it will be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Buddha Tara, bless me to be able to do this. Okay, relax. Time to go home. Or actually, aren't we? We're all home. That's easy. Thank you, everybody. So is Umze, our Umze there? Should we finish with some prayers, Umze? Where's he gone?
I'm here.
Yeah. Did you plan to finish some dedication prayers?
Yes, we do have them. Let me ask Mary to put them up on the screen. She's doing that now. Great.
Just keep it simple. Just the two, Don.
Okay, the Gewadi. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gawadi and Jangchub Semchog. And do it in
Okay.
English. Can we do it in English just so people can hear the words?
Sure, sure.
Okay. We do them together. Okay. Wrong one.
Wrong one here. Page down.
There we
Okay, there we go.
Just let's lead in English so we can hear the words, okay? Just go on. Thank you, everybody. And then we're done. We're finished. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll see you all again tomorrow or the next day, or we see what happens.
Thank you,
Don.
Venerable Robina.
Go on,
Due
then.
to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more.
Okay. Let me just see you all again. So I'll just say goodbye to all of you. Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thank you, Robina. Thank you.